Time to welcome our panel from Network 10, Russell Howcroft, and from Leo Burnett, Todd Sampson. Joining them from Campaign Edge, Dee Madigan, and a new Gruen face from BMF, Christina Aventi. Welcome. Now that we've brushed our teeth, let's have some sugar. Back in the 80s, there were plenty of sugar ads on the telly, like this one.
Sugar. It's as natural as...
Hello, sunshine, nature shining through the sugar cane. Bringing that great taste back again. Hello, sunshine. Hello, sunshine. Hello, sunshine. You're a natural part
Sugar.
of life.
Natural as sunshine.
Hello, sunshine.
Sugar, natural as sunshine, in that too much of either of them can kill you. These days, when you hear the word sugar in ads, it sounds more like this.
Werther's is making no sugar added caramels.
Maximum lime, no sugar.
Go play for May yogurt. Now with no added sugar.
No one can stop me when I taste the feeling.
Sugar phobia is everywhere, from supermarket shelves to the publishing and film world. Dee, what do you do when your product becomes the devil?
Well, for a sweet product, sugar has had a history of rather devilish behaviour in this area. When artificial sweeteners first came out, the sugar industry funded a whole lot of research that found that artificial sweeteners possibly maybe could be cancerous, but sugar was like totally okay. And that's this sort of using research to muddy the consensus is straight out of Big Tobacco Handbook. And then when the low-fat food thing came out, the sugar industry was right behind that as well, which is good, because if everyone thinks you're the devil, find someone who's worse. And where it was particularly clever is when you remove fat from a food, all the taste goes. So the low-fat foods, to increase the taste, added sugar. Genius.
I do like the natural argument, though, for sugar, like the authenticity and how we kind of repurposed the notion of nature. I mean, sugar is natural. Uranium's also natural, but we don't eat that either. But it's clever use of words, right? Because in some ways, sugar's not the devil, but it's a helper, you know? Because it's what's the vehicle it's delivered in that causes the problems, not so much the thing itself, because it is natural, that is true.
I think, though, what they're trying to do now is minimise damage. They're not going to advertise. What they're spending most of their money now on is lobbying governments not to change the packaging rules, because sugar is currently labelled under 40 different names, many of which don't contain the word sugar, and the sugar industry would like to keep it like that.
I love that 80s commercial, Will. It's so interesting, isn't it? There'll be people, you know, I suppose my age, older, people that are growing up in the 80s anyway, that they will immediately be singing that song. It's incredible, isn't it, the residual power of ads, and maybe the residual power of a jingle as well. And why aren't they running, not that ad, but why aren't they running that line? You know, sugar's a natural part of life. That strikes me as a smart line to keep using.
But do you think that it might be a little bit too far to say it's as natural as sunshine? I mean, the refined stuff that you see on our table is anything but that sugar cane stuff with the juice coming out of it.
Yeah, but look at the ad. There isn't any product shots in the advertisement. Yeah, so again, that's why it's clever.
Big sugar might well be the new big tobacco, and like cigarettes, it has found creative ways to sell itself. CSR is market leader, and if you watch Zumbo's Just Desserts, you'll see plenty of sugar. And see if you can spot the subliminal fridge magnet advertising in this clip from the show.
Hi, I'm Brogan, I'm 22 and I'm a stay-at-home mum.
Oh my goodness, are we making cupcakes?
So it's been hectic ever since. It's been full-on mummy zone.
Sugar! Todd, is CSR paying for those fridge magnets?
Well, I mean, when you look at cooking shows, in many ways, they're like the evolution of marketing. We're complaining about too many ads in between content programs on TV, so we just make the program an ad itself. And that's what these cooking shows have become, and they absolutely would have paid for that. And we forget the influence these shows have, because they're marketing vehicles. The managing director of CSR came out and said, because of MasterChef, volume of sugar has gone up 2%. That's a big, you know, that's a substantial move from a television show.
They're also educational, you know, because in the end, people do want to cook at home. And it's quite interesting what's going on now in terms of a trend. You know, let's just say Gen Y. So Gen Y, 55% of Gen Y are cooking at home for a group of people at least once a month. And of course, they're starting from scratch. And so programs such as the Zumbo, such as MasterChef, are really promoting the idea of you don't have to buy it in a pack, you can actually do it at home.
I think what's interesting about Zumbo, though, is that it's transcends desserts and cooking. It's actually an art form, and all of a sudden sugar is sort of wrapped up in this stuff, being able to transform. So it's just eye candy. I don't even know if I want to eat it. In fact, I've had some of Zumbo stuff and I don't. It is art on screen. It's beyond cooking almost.
I know, but the danger of that, and I'm not someone who's super into controlling the diet and food in my house, but the danger of that is the advertising or the marketing shows like this have tremendous influence. And if you lined up, if you had to, you know, if the messages from MasterChef and or Zumbo or advertising in general versus mum and dad's message, mum and dad will lose every time. They'll lose by sheer volume because of the amount that people are, and because these shows, MasterChef is absolute proof, not only can influence our purchasing, they can influence our entire eating pattern.
Yeah, so why is that dangerous? I don't know where you're going there.
You don't know where I'm going?
No, why is it dangerous? Why is it dangerous to give people an appreciation of beautifully made food and to promote doing it at home rather than going to the supermarket shelf and getting out something that's pre-made?
Because we're the third fattest nation on the planet, and we'd like to believe that we all have control over our eating and we can push back the influences that come our way. But the proof is in the numbers. The numbers are saying we don't.
Yeah, I don't know what that's got to do with scratch cooking from start.
And also, to be honest, Todd, I think you're going the wrong way. I mean, we can never go down that list. All I'm hearing is we're number 3. We could be number 1. We're a bronze. We could be gold. Zumbo, 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 Zumbo. Look at CSR's website, Facebook and Instagram. You could be forgiven for thinking it's a recipe company. It created the hashtag Baking Nation, not to be confused with the hashtag Baked Nation. I visited one more than the other. And one does lead to the other. The company sponsors the Cake, Bake and Sweets show and a cookbook. Christina, why sell cooking rather than eating?
Oh, look, this is absolutely the way to play it. What that does is it gives you an opportunity for A-grade food porn. Like, this is a veritable sort of catwalk of yumminess that you can drool over, and it's classic stimulus response. You salivate looking at that stuff, you have phantom hunger. But there's probably something deeper that's going on underneath all of that. The minute you pour sugar into a bowl in its sort of pure, white, refined glory, it is redeemed. It is not the devil anymore because it's part of cooking and baking, and with that stuff, it's wrapped up with wholesomeness and nutrition and providing. And, you know, when you think about that stuff, you know, you think about baking a cake with your mum or your grandma, it triggers those memories, and all of a sudden you get to innocence. And that's how sugar transcends being the devil.
I think also the usage has changed completely. It's now almost the only time you would use sugar at home is when you are baking. You know, in the old days, you'd have your cup of tea and your coffee and you'd have a couple of spoons of sugar in it, or you'd sprinkle it on your cereal. That just doesn't happen anymore. The only real usage is when you're baking.
Yeah, well, because the majority of the sugar we get is not from added sugar, it's from sugar that already exists in products. We get like 60 grams of sugar a day just from normal food, let alone adding in. You know, that's 14 teaspoons of sugar a day just from normal food. You know, so to add it in, you're slightly going over the top.
But here's the interesting thing, though, Todd. I don't know how much sugar is too much. Yeah, so
14's too much.
Yeah, but who says it's too much?
World Health Organisation actually came up with a figure, and I know that the Americans are 22 teaspoons a day, which is extraordinary, which is something like 3 or 4 times more than it should be.
For me, what I think is interesting is why isn't the sugar industry actually educating us on what's appropriate? I think there's an incredible opportunity there.
I can tell you why that's not happening.
But
I mean, they're playing a volume game, and they're not telling people to. I mean, what they're doing is, you know, is they're diversifying their products, but they don't want to tell you not to eat it. It would be a clever reverse, thinking.
And also, what they're doing is they're talking, and the sugar industry's been really tricky on this. They won't talk about it in teaspoons, even though a lot of people have said do it like that because that's what we understand. They keep talking about it in grams, and grams are really hard for people to kind of understand how much sugar that is.
But 14 teaspoons over the course of a day is 1 teaspoon per hour, and I can see people people very easily burning that. It's just...
Russell, please, let's not encourage people to have 14 teaspoons of sugar.
But who are you to say?
I'm telling you, taking 14 teaspoons of sugar in one hit would not...
No, but it could easily be 8 or it could be 16. It's like it's this random number. I need to see a campaign. Maybe it's from the World Health Organisation. I'd prefer it to be from the sugar industry.
Russell, there is a campaign. It's called diabetes.
No, but also...
No, that's not a campaign.
You're right. You want to know the food you're eating, how many teaspoons of sugar are in that piece of food.
Sorry, I have been thinking about sugar this whole time. Sorry, I always tune out when it becomes Q&A. CSR also has a foot in the blogging world. A post on food blog Sugar et al. Reads, "The only brand of sugar I use in my kitchen is CSR Sugar." And then this disclaimer. This post is brought to you by CSR Sugar. Russell, what's a blogger worth to a brand?
Well, blogging is very important in the food industry or anything to do with the home. You know, blogging does play a big role. It's in a way, it's replaced magazines as the place that people would go, you know, in particular the homemaker would go and they'd find out about recipes and they would read advertorials, which is in effect what a blogger is. They also do get paid. It's not a huge market, though, in Australia because we just don't have the numbers. If you go over to the US, the notion of blogging by category is enormous and the numbers are enormous. And the individual will get paid as if they're a magazine and as if they're a magazine selling space.
Blogging's really used a lot in decision making. So the two most trusted forms of information or information gathering, especially around food, number one is word of mouth, number two is blogging. But the unique thing about bloggers is it's not regulated. So currently a blogger does not have to disclose to you that they're being paid. Every other form of advertising needs to disclose to you that it's advertising coming at you or marketing in some way, shape or form. But bloggers can still get paid and not tell you.
And we're 80% more likely to buy something at the recommendation of a friend than from an advertiser. And a blogger kind of straddles that sort of space between the two.
Last year, CSR launched Sugars of the World. There's no CSR branding on the front of those packets. Dee, why not call the product CSR's Sugars of the World?
Well, I think they're designed to look like they wouldn't be out of place in a health food store. They look like exotic sort of oriental kind of spices, which is exactly what they're going for. If you stuck CSR on there, all of a sudden it kind of looks pedestrian, it looks Australian, and that's what you don't want.
I think that this is actually really good. And it's good because they've decided to ignore the low interest trap. So what happens is there's high interest marketing and there's low interest marketing. And if you're a commodity, what you'll tend to do is you'll say, oh, we're low interest and therefore we're going to do really boring stuff. You've got to work your way into high interest and you've got to fight the notion that you are in a low interest commodity category. So petrol does this all the time. They're forever telling themselves that they're low interest. There's nothing low interest about petrol. Sugar spend time telling themselves that they're low interest. There's nothing low interest about it. So creating some packaging, trying to create some differentiation.
You're like a motivational speaker for brands with low self-esteem.
It is.
Come on, petrol. Believe in yourself.
That is 100% what it's about.
The last time CSR did a TV ad, it was for brown sugar.
CSR brown sugar adds a delicious flavour and rich, moist texture to your favourite recipes.
Bloody brown sugar coming and taking all the white sugar's jobs. A year ago, Coles aired this.
Save on 1 kilogram of Coles Australian white sugar, down to just $1 every day.
I use lots of sugar.
Save every day at Coles.
That product shot was so indistinct it could have been for salt, flour or cocaine. In fact, that's how they got Status Quo to do their ads. They love sugar. Christina, will we ever see an ad for white sugar again?
Oh, look, I'm not sure, but I'll tell you what I think they should do if they went down this pathway. I reckon it's getting back to the supplier. When you can picture the person behind the product you're buying, it makes that decision that you make at the supermarket shelf seem real. And Aussies love farmers. We're constantly trying to find wives for them and the like. So, you know, it's something that milk and cheese and beef has done really well. And I guess paying a measly buck for 1 kilogram of sugar it's absolute crap. It just seems wrong when you've got a picture of a second or third generation farmer who's working the land. That's the way I would plan it, get it back to the earth and the land.
Of course, if you want to know how to be sweet, there's only one question you need to ask. What would Justin do?